Hi, Chris and Jenna here. And as we've been preparing for the Marriage Refresh Conference, Chris and I have been talking about what are a few things that we wish we would have known before we got married.
Yeah.
And one of the first ones that I have such a conviction on has to do with community, accountability, and honesty. We've been married almost 20 years, and over those 2 decades, the marriages that thrive are those that are regularly attending a corporate gathering, that meet in accountability groups or are functioning in relationships with accountability, and that are honest. They're not trying to put on a show, and they know they're going to be accepted no matter what the condition of their marriage. Honesty is so essential to having a healthy marriage, and that there'd be people that we trust to really let them know what's going on, because then we can process through it and have true healthy marriages which fill a healthy community.
Yeah. The second thing that we wish we would have known before we got married was that there were just going to be some things that took time. Have a long-term perspective is the second one. This is what we have come to find, is that when two individual people are committed to abiding in the Lord, having an intimate relationship with Jesus, and staying connected to Jesus, over a period of time, good fruit will be produced. What we realize is relational health starts to form. We do pre-marriage counseling with couples, and we'll look at these future husbands and future wives that are just love-struck with each other, and we tell them, give your spouse 10 years to learn how to be a good husband or a good wife. This helps to appropriate grace, to create an environment of grace. One of the most fruitful environments or the most beneficial environments for us to grow in is a grace-filled environment. Jenna has been shown me more grace than any other person on the planet, and vice versa. When we show each other grace, we realize that we're in it for the long term, and as long as we're connected to Jesus, He's going to produce good fruit in our lives. And so that's why it's the second point of having a long-term outlook on our marriage and our health.
Another thing we wish we'd have known before we got married was the importance of hedges. We actually watched some videos and had some resources earlier in our marriage, which I'm really thankful for.
Yeah.
But by hedge, we mean like boundaries. And so in an age where adultery is destroying marriages, it's really important that we set up some boundaries and hedges to protect our marriage. And they may seem so foreign and unnecessary. However, I remember a mentor of mine saying, if you think you won't commit adultery, you will be the first to. Because pride comes before the fall. And some hedges Chris and I agreed to early in our marriage. The first one was that we wouldn't ride in a car with someone of the opposite sex alone. It was really important that we weren't to be with someone with the opposite sex alone. It was just a boundary we established. Another one was, like, is Chris is a pastor and he's meeting, that his door, if he's meeting with a woman, his door is open and there's someone else present that's within earshot. And this is to also protect us from the appearance of evil. A final one that we've kind of added in probably the last decade had to do with social media.
Yeah.
And so that we just agreed that we wouldn't send friend requests or follow ex-boyfriends or girlfriends. Just because so many of those affairs start with an emotional connection, and that emotional connection becomes established. And then we've seen it over years where that destroys a marriage, and it seems innocent at first. But so we just couldn't encourage you more, whether you're married or not, or pursuing marriage, to make sure that you set up those boundaries and hedges in your marriage.
Yeah, the last thing that we wish we would have known before we got married was just how dangerous offense is. The Bible would say that offense is like a trap. And when we get offended, what happens is we give place in our lives to deception and bitterness and resentment. Now, if you're watching this video and you may be single and you're asking the question, what is it that I'm looking for in a future spouse? Here's what I would recommend is that when you look at that individual or you're looking at a person, do they forgive quickly? Do they show grace quickly? Or do they have a pattern of becoming offended and bitter and speaking and gossiping about people behind their back? These are all signs of unhealth, relational unhealth, that oftentimes come into marriages. And so what we see is we want to be a people that follow Jesus' example in every way. And if there was anyone that ever walked the face of the earth that had a right to be offended, it was Jesus. and we see that he forgave. We see that he was one that overlooked an offense. And according to the Word of God, it's to our glory to overlook the offense of another person. And so one of the things that we also know is that the highest propensity of getting offended will happen within marriage. And so we learn how to forgive really in marriage to a real deep degree. Now, you may be listening to this, and this may be something that's newer to you or something that's familiar to you, but this is what we know. It's really important that we give consistent attention to our marriages. Like a garden, we need to pull weeds regularly. We need to put fertilizer on our marriages regularly, water our marriages regularly. And this is really why we're doing the Marriage Refresh Conference coming up May 15th and 16th at City Central Church, to really see new life come into your marriage. And we just believe this. We believe that as you give yourself to a Friday and a Saturday to pour into your marriages, if you have kids or your future kids, they're going to be blessed. Your generations are going to be blessed. So much hinges on the health of our marriages. And so I'd encourage you to set apart this weekend. Go ahead and follow the prompts to sign up, and we look forward to seeing you then.